Now, on to this story now. The Western Cape Minister of Agriculture, Ivan Meyer, is holding a media briefing focusing on the impact of the recent floods on the agricultural sector. Let's take you there live now and listen in.
It is also for us important to understand from the agricultural sector, and particularly our commercial agriculture, what is the impact that they have experienced on the farming communities. And for that, I'm now handing over to the Chief Executive Officer of Agri Western Cape, Mr. Jannie Strydom, that will just explain to us what messages he was getting from the farming community in terms of the impact of this rain.
Thank you, Minister. I think from our side, firstly, a great thank you, especially for the for this district municipality and the proactive measurements that they took, and specifically Franken with the Provincial Disaster Management Centre and all his inputs there. So, Meyer, thank you for this opportunity here. From the commercial agricultural side, the major impact at this stage is infrastructure, access roads to farms. We know we're in the peak season of the citrus industry as well. Potatoes are very badly impacted as well. So it's all about getting the produce off the farm to the market. And that's the major issues that we experience at this stage. Fortunately, our grain planting season has ended, so all the grains are planted, and now we just need to get into those areas as well with the fertilizers and the spraying and so forth. But at this stage, the major challenge is infrastructure, and more specifically the access to the farms, so that we can take up or get the product off the farm to the market where it's been sold. So thank you for this opportunity, and to all the role players here this morning that contributed in assisting this area. There's a great thanks from us from the agriculture sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Jannie. What we are seeing here from the Disaster Management Centre, that there are some preliminary surveys that was done. This thing is still happening. We expect some further rains in a couple of days and even today. So what is the plan? How do we want to proceed forward? Firstly, number one priority is to protect life and also to protect livelihoods. For us, it is important that we do not lose lives, because that's the number one priority for us. Secondly, as Jannie has indicated, the harvest season for us is important, particularly the citrus farmers now in this area, but also some of the other commodities. But this is a citrus region, particularly largely, but not exclusively. We also know that South Africa is the second biggest exporter of citrus fruit in the world after Spain, and this is a major citrus region, so we are particularly concerned about the harvest. And thirdly, for us, it is also to protect the farming communities in this area as a result of this flood. As Jannie has indicated, particularly some of these farming communities have no other access and have been locked in their local towns. And therefore, the fourth priority for us now is to make sure that our road infrastructure is restored, and that this is a key focus for us. And that's why my colleague, the Minister of Infrastructure, Minister Simmons, is working around the clock to make sure that we create access to other towns, particularly to the restoration of the infrastructure, particularly as it relates to citrus dulse, since this was massively hit, and there are some work as we speak currently taking place. Obviously, it is very difficult to manage some of this road infrastructure if it is continued to rain, but we are working around the clock to make sure that we restore the infrastructure. The infrastructure specifically in the towns that needs access roads to the markets, because that for us is very important, because the Western Cape is responsible for 55% of South Africa's agricultural exports. So the road access to the harbour, from the harvesting to the road to the harbour in Cape Town for us is very important. So that is also currently taking a key focus of our strategy. So today is Monday. 2 days from now, the Western Cape Cabinet will meet, and we will get a further update to report, and we will be making some further announcements through the Premier of the Western Cape, as well as Minister Bredel will make some further announcements, because this warrants immediate action, and we will certainly take some further decisions on Wednesday to see what type of support we can render to the district and to the farming communities. I want to thank the support that we have received, particularly to the farming communities in the form of Gift of the Givers, Shoprite, Sandbag, in terms of humanitarian support, coordinated also here by Meyer Boffy Stradum from the district municipality and the other 5 regional municipalities. So for us, this is important that we further get a flood report. We expect some further reports to come in on Wednesday. We have provided a document to get a survey. That survey is also being coordinated by Agri Western Cape, and by Wednesday we will have a further detailed report on what is currently happening. But one thing is certain, there's huge damage to the agricultural sector, huge damage to our road infrastructure. But what is also certain, we have the capacity to deal with restoring the road infrastructure, restoring the infrastructure that is currently being destroyed. We are working as we speak, and we will continue to make sure that we protect the agricultural sector in this particular region, as it is very important. So our disaster management center has been activated. Our health facilities are also currently being monitored, as well as the municipal jogs, together with our Western Cape Department of Education, is looking at the infrastructure around the schools, as well as great support that we are getting from the South African Police Services. Our law enforcement and traffic officers are also on high alert to see and redirect traffic through alternative routes. The route between Citrusdal and Wuppertal, it's very important, but also the road between Citrusdal and Ceres in Witzenberg. Some parts of that road have been restored, and we are very thankful for that, because that's also a great feeding route for our road infrastructure and our agricultural products. I'm also very thankful for our Farmers Association that is also present here today, because they feed us with regular information of what is happening on the farm, and these are very, very important information that we take into the job so that we develop alternative plans. So that is our strategy, to look into protecting lives in the community, protecting the harvest of the various farmers, but also restoring the infrastructure and protect our rural communities. That's the structure, that's the development that we will take forward on Wednesday when we meet in the cabinet. And so very important, thanks to the various communities, the churches and everybody supporting our communities with humanitarian support, particularly in Citrusdal and in the Machikama region that was hit the most severe in this area. Thank you. We are open for any questions.
Just introduce your name and just which media agency you represent, and you can go away.
Mariska Botha from the SABC. It's directed both to Mr. Stradum from Agri Western Cape and MEC Meyer. Can you just give us a little bit more detail as to the impact of the rain on agriculture? It is planting season. What impact does it have on, for example, wheat? And we heard that you said potatoes it's a problem. So can you give us a little bit of a broader overview of the impact on agriculture as a result of this flood?
Jannie, you can proceed.
If we start with the grain, it's now time to spray, and it's time for fertilizer to be applied. So unfortunately, given the rain that we received and the conditions of the ground at this stage is just inaccessible. So one will have to await for better sunny conditions, so it can dry out and to have access. Although one can use air spray, but unfortunately that's not going to cover all the need that's there. But farmers do take this in a more positive way, the grain farmers. Rain is better than a drought, so we're still positive in terms of the grain at this stage and the whole production season that lies ahead. On the commodities mostly affected now is like you mentioned, potatoes and citrus that Minister Meyer also referred to. It's a question of getting into the orchards and the land to harvest, to do the harvest, and then to take that off the farm to the market. So that's it's all about access infrastructure. and not only roads but bridges as well. So there are some severe damages in certain areas, and that's a concern for us to get that produce off. So it's physically harvesting and then also to take it from the farm to the market. We all know we're working with perishable products in agriculture, and that's the major challenge. We don't have that opportunity or that window of opportunity to store it for long periods. Specifically, not when it's not when you're not able to put it in cooling facilities. But that's also the access to those facilities are also being hampered at this stage, and that's why the impact is so severe.
Yes, I think there's also the problem that we normally have in the Western Cape, total agricultural value production in the region of 50 billion. Sometimes between 48 and 50 billion rand. We can expect a reduction in the agricultural production as a result of this, because this is widespread. It's also very extensive in the other regions, particularly in the Cape Winelands region as well as in the Overberg region. We've seen massive destruction in those particular areas. So my initial preliminary prediction is that we will see a slight reduction in the agricultural value production. We are also working with the Citrus Growers Association. They're also very concerned, particularly as Yanni said about the harvesting and the transportation to the harbour. As you know, we're exporting citrus to the rest of the world. And for me, also very important that this will also affect the situation of farm workers, and we will also have to look into those particular aspects as we go forward. So this has a massive knock-on effect on farms, because it starts with land preparation or soil preparation through harvesting to pack houses, cold storage, transportation, and in between you also must understand that this weather had a major negative impact on the whole issue of the supply of energy. Some places do not have any electricity, and agriculture is dependent on regular sustainable supply of energy provision, and some of these places are days without electricity, and this is a major negative impact on the agricultural production.
Anybody else?
One more from me, sorry.
Go.
Again, Mariska from the SABC. It might be early, I understand, the Minister said as well that you're still getting reports. The impact on the ground for farmers, are there farmers that face the danger of their crops failing as a result of this?
Yeah.
Well, at this stage, in terms of your longer-term crops, we're quite into the season, harvesting season already, and like I said, there are cooling facilities. It's just on the perishable products, like your vegetables, that is a concern at this stage. So I wouldn't say at this stage, because we don't have all the figures, that it's they won't get any income, but I still think it will definitely negatively impact the result. As Minister alluded to, the drought that we had, this is unfortunate. Once you have a decent crop after a drought, and then you're battling to get it out of the ground and to the market, and that will be a challenge, and will definitely negatively impact. I think a very important point that the Minister raised as well is the impact on energy supply. We get a lot of calls from our members in terms of electricity that's off, but I also know Eskom is on our provincial disaster management meetings, and at this stage they do what they can to rectify and restore all the damages to their infrastructure as well. But that's a huge challenge, and I'm glad the Minister alluded to that, because it is a challenge. Thanks.
Well, the bee industry has also indicated to us that they have lost about 10,000 beehives. So this is also extensively, we know the impact of bees on agriculture. So this is also something that's quite extensive. In addition, the blueberry industry is also suffering a major knock-on effect as a result of this. So as we say, by Wednesday, the Western Cape Cabinet will have a more full assessment of the situation, as we are still getting initial reports from the industry, from the agricultural sector, and from our own extension and advisory officers and our regional managers from agriculture. When they bring all that information, we will be able to release further information by Wednesday through Minister Bredel.
Kan ek net ook, ek wil net sê, so 2 weke terug, toe is ons damvlakke onder druk. En binne oornag is ons damme 100% plus vol. So ons kan oornag 'n droogte breek. Ons kan nie oornag al die probleme oplos nie. So al wat ek van distrik se kant af vra, ons het die personeel, ons het alles, ons kan dit regtig goed doen. Is geduld. Ongelukkig geduld is 'n moeilike ding, maar ek vra dat ons boere net geduldig moet wees. Ons het so 9000 km plus paaie wat ons verantwoordelikheid is. So ons gaan regtig waar ons bes doen, dag en nag werk, maar dit gaan nie sommer oornag reg wees nie. So ek vra net wees geduldig, maar ons is hands-on met dit, so dan gaan ons weer die ding reg kry.
Well, I think that's very important to note because a couple of days ago, the dam level at the Clenwilliam Dam was in the region of 29%. And a few days later, it is 92%. That hardly happened in anywhere in the history of rivers and dams. So this is a disaster, and we are here to specifically look at how we can support the local communities and particularly my field, agriculture and the farming communities. That's why Agri-Western Cape is here, and I think we will announce further plans after Wednesday.
Last one from my side is the possibility of declaring a provincial disaster on the table.
Well, given the scale and the scope and the images that we have seen on the farms and the evidence that we have, there's no doubt in my mind that there will be a good case to make for both a local disaster and a provincial disaster, because the scale of the problems that we have seen is, in my view, a disaster, but we normally do a proper assessment, scientific evidence and data that will lead us to that conclusion. But from what I have seen, what people have, the images of what I have seen, I have little doubt that this is and should be declared as a disaster, but that my colleague Minister Bredel will make out a case on Wednesday in the Cabinet.
Colleagues, if there are any more questions, I think we can allow one or two more. But if not, I'm going to conclude this presser. But between myself and the spokesperson of the Minister, we can coordinate. If any of the media houses want to do one-on-one with any of the panel.
Well, we come out of that press briefing there being led by the Western Cape government following the following the weather disaster that has hit the province. And now, of course, as you just heard there, Meyer saying that they are looking into declaring it a provincial disaster, considering the extent of the damage.
Yeah, very difficult for authorities to tell at this point what the impact is going to be on the agricultural sector. That's what we're hearing from the agricultural MEC, saying that for a lot of the areas, the ground still not accessible due to water levels. Also saying that various areas have been impacted, and not just really checking on what the harvest is going to look like after these rains, but also the impact that this is having even on the value chain, as connectivity to move perishable goods on damaged roads becoming quite a big problem. And of course, Pimela Zonke also letting us know that a cold front set to hit the Western Cape tomorrow as well, so that weather continuing in the Western Cape.
Yeah.